school cafeterias in black communities during the 1980s and 1990s were more than just places to eat lunch. They were stages for social dynamics, cultural exchanges, and unforgettable moments that shaped an entire generation. The smell of pizza squares, the sound of trays clattering, and the energy of hundreds of kids navigating friendships, rivalries, and rituals created a world unto itself. These cafeterias were where fashion was judged, reputations were made, and community bonds were strengthened over rectangular slices and chocolate milk. But what exactly made those lunchroom experiences so uniquely memorable for black students? Here are 20 things that happened in black school cafeterias you'll never forget. 1. The elaborate handshake rituals before sitting down. Before a single bite of food was taken, black kids in the cafeteria engaged in intricate handshake sequences that could last 30 seconds or more. These weren't simple high fives. They were choreographed routines involving slaps, snaps, slides, and synchronized movements that demonstrated friendship bonds and social status. Boys would greet each other with elaborate daps that involved multiple hand positions, fist bumps, and finger snaps, while girls had their own versions incorporating claps and rhythm patterns. Missing a step or fumbling the sequence could result in good-natured teasing and demands to start over. These handshakes served as more than greetings. They were coded language that identified friend groups, neighborhood affiliations, and cultural belonging. Each crew had signature variations that distinguished them from other groups in the cafeteria. The complexity of your handshake repertoire indicated how connected you were socially, and new students often spent weeks learning the sequences to gain acceptance. Teachers and cafeteria monitors would watch with a mixture of amusement and bewilderment, unable to replicate the intricate movements that came so naturally to the students. For many black students, these handshakes represented a form of cultural expression that mainstream school culture didn't always acknowledge or understand. They were a way of maintaining identity and community in institutional spaces that sometimes felt disconnected from their neighborhoods and homes. The cafeteria became the place where these expressions could flourish freely during the brief lunch period. 2. The competitive trading economy of snacks and lunch items. Black school cafeterias operated their own complex trading economy, where certain foods held currency-like value. A bag of Flamin' Hot Cheetos could be traded for 2 items, while Fruit Roll UPS, Gushers, or Dunkaroos commanded premium exchange rates. Students who brought lunch from home became brokers, negotiating deals across tables, while cafeteria food buyers looked on with envy. The most skilled traders could turn a single valuable snack into a feast by the end of lunch period, making multiple exchanges with different students. The trading wasn't just about food, it was about social capital and negotiation skills. Kids learned the art of the deal, understanding supply and demand before they ever took an economics class. Some students became known as the plug for certain items, always having what others wanted and knowing how to leverage that advantage. Others were notorious for making unfair trades with younger students, earning reputations that followed them through the grades. The cafeteria staff generally turned a blind eye to the trading unless it became too disruptive, recognizing it as a harmless part of the social ecosystem. This economic system taught black kids valuable lessons about value, negotiation, and community reciprocity. It mirrored the informal economies in their neighborhoods where bartering and mutual exchange were common practices. The cafeteria trading floor became a microcosm of entrepreneurial thinking that would serve many students well beyond their school years. 3. The ritual of blessing someone's tray. When someone said bless over another student's food in the cafeteria, it meant they were claiming dibs on anything left uneaten. This practice was so widespread in black schools that students would rush to bless multiple trays, creating complex hierarchies of who had first, second, and third rights to leftovers. Arguments would erupt over whose blessing came first or whether a blessing was valid if the food hadn't been touched yet. Some students developed lightning-fast reflexes, blessing trays the moment they were set down on the table. The blessing system revealed the food scarcity that some black students faced at home. While it was often played as a game, underneath was the reality that many kids relied on school lunch as their primary meal of the day. The ones who consistently blessed trays were usually the ones who needed extra food, though the social ritual allowed them to acquire it without the stigma of asking directly. Friends understood this unspoken dynamic and would intentionally leave food on their trays for certain classmates while maintaining the playful pretense of a blessing game. This practice demonstrated the communal care that characterized Black school cafeterias. Students looked out for each other in ways that adults often didn't see or understand. The blessing ritual was about more than food. It was about ensuring no one went hungry while preserving everyone's dignity. It was community mutual aid disguised as a game, reflecting the collective survival strategies that Black families had employed for generations. For the designated roasting tables. Certain tables in Black school cafeterias became unofficial roasting zones, where verbal sparring was the main course. Students gathered to test their wit through elaborate insults about clothes, haircuts, family members, and anything else that could be turned into a punchline. These sessions, sometimes called ranking, joning, or playing the dozens, required quick thinking, clever wordplay, and thick skin. The best roasters earned legendary status, and their comebacks would be repeated for weeks afterward. The roasting was more than mean-spirited teasing. It was a cultural tradition with deep roots in Black oral culture. Students honed their rhetorical skills, learning to think on their feet and defend themselves verbally. The key was not just delivering a good burn, but doing it with creativity and style. Simply being mean wasn't impressive. The insult had to be clever, unexpected, and delivered with perfect timing. Audiences would react with a characteristic ooh that signaled a particularly devastating blow, and the roastee was expected to come back with something equally sharp or accept defeat gracefully. Teachers often tried to shut down these sessions, not understanding that they served as important social bonding rituals. Through roasting, students established pecking orders, tested friendships, and developed the verbal dexterity that would serve them in countless future situations. The cafeteria roasting table was where many Black kids learned that words could be weapons, shield, and tools for commanding respect, lessons that mainstream curriculum rarely taught. 5. The sacredness of pizza day. When the cafeteria menu listed pizza day, the energy in Black schools reached a different level. Students who normally brought lunch from home would suddenly buy cafeteria food. The rectangular slices with their crispy edges, slightly tangy sauce, and generous layer of cheese were far superior to the pizza served on other days of the week. Lines would form early, and students would strategize about timing to ensure they got fresh slices straight from the oven rather than the ones that had been sitting under heat lamps. Pizza day transcended normal cafeteria food hierarchies. On these days, the usual traders put their negotiations aside to focus on securing their slices. Some students would buy 2 or 3 pieces, while others would pool their lunch money with friends to create impromptu pizza parties at their tables. The smell of baking pizza would waft through hallways during morning classes, building anticipation that made it hard to concentrate on lessons. Teachers knew better than to assign serious work right before lunch on pizza day. For many Black students, cafeteria pizza represented one of the few times when school food approached the quality of what they ate at home or in their neighborhoods. It was a small luxury in institutions that often felt resource-starved. The communal anticipation and shared enjoyment of pizza day created temporary unity across different social groups, as everyone from athletes to honor students to the kids, who usually sat alone, found common ground in their love for those rectangular slices. 6. The unofficial DJ playing music on portable speakers. In many Black school cafeterias, one student would bring a portable speaker, often a small boom box in the early days, later a Bluetooth speaker, and become the unofficial DJ for the lunch period. They'd play the latest hip-hop, R&B, and rap tracks, turning the cafeteria into a temporary party space. Students would react to their favorite songs, rapping along, doing dance moves in their seats, or freestyling over the beats. The music created an atmosphere that made the institutional space feel more like home. Cafeteria monitors and administrators had mixed reactions to this practice. Some would confiscate the speakers immediately, while others would allow the music as long as the volume stayed reasonable and the lyrics weren't too explicit. The DJ student held significant social power, as their music choices could make or break the vibe of lunch period. They had to read the room, knowing when to play up-tempo tracks that energized everyone and when to slow it down with R&B classics that let people eat and talk. This musical tradition reflected the central role that music played in Black cultural life. The cafeteria DJ wasn't just playing songs. They were curating an experience, creating a soundtrack for daily life, and asserting cultural presence in a space that often felt culturally neutral or white-centered. For 30 minutes, the music transformed the cafeteria from an institution into a community space where Black students could fully express themselves. 7. The fashion show entrance. Entering the Black school cafeteria wasn't simply walking through a door. It was an entrance that could make or break your social standing for the day. Students would time their arrivals to maximize visibility, especially when wearing new clothes, shoes, or hairstyles. The most confident students would walk through the cafeteria with deliberate slowness, allowing everyone to take in their outfit. New Jordan releases, fresh braids, or a particularly sharp outfit would generate audible reactions from tables throughout the room. This daily fashion show served multiple purposes beyond vanity. For many Black students, personal style was one of the few areas where they could exercise complete control and creative expression in the structured environment of school. Your appearance communicated information about your family's economic status, your connection to hip-hop and youth culture, and your sense of self-worth. A student who consistently wore stylish, well-maintained clothes earned respect even if they weren't academically successful or athletically gifted. The scrutiny could be intense, however. Wearing the wrong brand, having an outdated hairstyle, or showing up in clothes that didn't fit properly could result in comments that echoed for weeks. This pressure reflected both the importance of appearance in Black culture and the harsh judgments that young people inflicted on each other. Yet the cafeteria fashion show also pushed students to take pride in their appearance and develop their personal style, skills that served them well beyond school years. 8. The designated romance corner. Every Black school cafeteria had certain tables where couples sat together, feeding each other French fries, holding hands across the table, and creating a bubble of intimacy amid the chaos. These areas became known as the relationship corner or love seats, and single students would mock the couples while secretly wishing they had someone to sit within that designated space. The couples would engage in elaborate displays of affection that pushed the boundaries of school appropriateness, while cafeteria monitors tried to enforce the leave room for Jesus distance policy. The relationship corner served as a stage for performing romance in front of peer audiences. Young couples would demonstrate their commitment through public affection, sharing food, and defending each other against teasing from friends. Breaking up meant the difficult decision of who would lose access to the coveted relationship table, often leading one person to avoid the cafeteria altogether for weeks. New couples would nervously claim their spot in the corner, officially announcing their status to the entire student body. These cafeteria relationships, while often short-lived, taught Black students important lessons about partnership, boundaries, and public versus private life. The relationships formed in those lunch periods sometimes lasted for years, with couples reminiscing decades later about feeding each other tater tots and navigating the social pressures of young love under the fluorescent lights of the school cafeteria. 9. The legendary food fights that everyone remembers. While not a daily occurrence, food fights in Black school cafeterias became legendary events that students discussed for years afterward. These eruptions of chaos usually started with a single thrown French fry, but quickly escalated into full-scale warfare involving entire sections of the cafeteria. Mashed potatoes became ammunition, milk cartons transformed into projectiles, and students who wanted no part of the conflict found themselves caught in the crossfire. The sound of trays hitting floors, students screaming, and cafeteria workers shouting created a symphony of pandemonium. The aftermath of a food fight was severe. Mass detentions, suspended lunch privileges, and cafeteria monitors on high alert for weeks. Yet the memory of that brief moment of complete institutional breakdown held a special place in student lore. Years later, alumni would reconnect and immediately remember that food fight in '95, or when Johnson threw the whole tray at the jock's table. These events represented rare moments when students collectively broke from the controlled order of school life, even knowing the consequences would be swift and harsh. Food fights also revealed the power dynamics and social tensions simmering beneath the surface of cafeteria life. They often erupted from conflicts between different social groups, athletes versus non-athletes, students from different neighborhoods, or long-standing personal beefs that finally boiled over. In the retelling, these chaotic moments became stories of rebellion and unity, as students described how they defended their friends or stood up to bullies in the middle of flying food and pandemonium. 10. The student who could get free extra food. Every black school cafeteria had that one student who had a special relationship with the lunch ladies and could somehow get extra portions, free desserts, or additional servings that others couldn't access. Maybe they helped carry supplies, made the workers laugh, or reminded them of a grandchild. Whatever the reason, they held privileged status behind the serving line. Other students would beg them to use their influence to secure extra chicken nuggets or an additional brownie, and their power in the cafeteria economy was significant. This special relationship often reflected the community connections that characterized black neighborhoods. The lunch ladies saw something in that particular student. Maybe they knew the family from church, recognized a child who needed extra care, or simply appreciated someone who showed them respect and kindness. In schools where staff and students came from the same communities, these personal connections provided informal support systems that supplemented official school resources. The favored students' access to extra food also highlighted the food insecurity that affected many black families. Lunch ladies, many of whom came from similar economic backgrounds, understood which students needed more food and found unofficial ways to provide it. The student who could get extra portions often quietly shared their bounty with friends who needed it, continuing the tradition of communal care that defined black survival strategies. This wasn't about breaking rules. It was about adults and students working together to ensure no child went hungry. 11. The dance battles that broke out spontaneously. When the right song came on, either from the unofficial DJ speaker or stuck in someone's head, students in black school cafeterias would spontaneously break into dance battles. Kids would stand up and show off their latest moves while classmates circled around, clapping and encouraging them. These impromptu performances featured everything from breaking and popping to the newest dance crazes sweeping through black youth culture. Students who could dance well earned significant social capital, and the best dancers were celebrities in their own right. The cafeteria provided the perfect stage for these performances because the audience was captive and diverse. A good dancer could capture the attention of the entire room, with students climbing on benches to see over the crowd and cafeteria workers pausing their duties to watch. The battles had unspoken rules. You didn't interrupt someone's turn. You respected skill even from rivals. And if you got outdanced, you accepted it gracefully. The crowds would erupt with a signature ooh-hoo when someone executed a particularly impressive move. These dance moments were more than entertainment. They were expressions of black cultural creativity and physical excellence in an environment that often prioritized academic and athletic achievement defined by white mainstream standards. On the cafeteria floor, different forms of intelligence and talent could shine. Students who struggled academically could command respect through their dancing ability, and the cultural knowledge required to master the latest dance trends was valued as highly as any test score. 12. The senior tables that underclassmen couldn't touch. In black high school cafeterias, seniors claimed specific tables as their exclusive territory, and underclassmen who violated this unwritten law faced swift consequences. These senior tables represented the culmination of years of cafeteria hierarchy. As freshmen, you ate wherever you could find space, but by senior year, you had earned prime real estate. The best senior tables were usually near windows, away from cafeteria monitors, and positioned where you could see everyone who entered and left. Defending these tables from presumptuous juniors was a matter of pride. The territorial system taught students about hierarchies, respect for seniority, and the rewards that came with time and patience. Freshmen would look at the senior tables with a mixture of envy and aspiration, knowing that someday they too would have that privilege, if they made it through. The seniors guarding their tables weren't just being territorial. They were maintaining a tradition that gave structure and meaning to the social chaos of the cafeteria. This system also reflected the emphasis on respect for elders and established order that characterized many Black communities. The cafeteria hierarchy mirrored the respect systems in families and neighborhoods where age and experience conferred authority. Seniors who had navigated for years of school drama, academic pressures, and social challenges had earned their space. And everyone understood that disrupting this order would upset the delicate social balance that made the cafeteria function. 13. The infamous walkout days. On certain days in Black school cafeterias, word would spread quickly that it was a walkout day. Students would leave en masse to go to a nearby fast food restaurant or corner store rather than eat cafeteria food. These coordinated exits required timing and solidarity, as students would wait until the cafeteria monitors were distracted, then flood toward the doors in groups. Some schools tried to prevent walkouts by locking gates or posting guards, but determined students would find ways to slip out, return with bags of McDonald's or Popeyes, and eat their contraband food before administrators could respond. Walkout days served as unofficial protests against cafeteria food quality, lack of choices, or simply the desire for autonomy over lunch decisions. They represented collective action and student solidarity. Everyone had to participate for the walkout to succeed, and those who stayed behind faced questions about their loyalty. Students who successfully returned with outside food were treated as heroes, sharing their bounty with those who didn't make it out or couldn't afford to buy food elsewhere. These walkouts also reflected the broader relationship between Black students and institutional authority. They were small acts of resistance that challenged the school's control over students' daily lives. The cafeteria administration would crack down after walkouts, implementing stricter rules and threatening suspensions, but the memory of that collective freedom, even if just for 30 minutes, sustained students through the rest of the year. 14. The group that always had someone's mother's cooking. Certain groups of friends in Black school cafeterias always had Tupperware containers filled with food from someone's mother's kitchen. Fried chicken, macaroni and cheese, collard greens, cornbread, or sweet potato pie. These students rarely ate cafeteria food, instead spreading out home-cooked meals that made everyone around them jealous. The smells alone would attract attention from across the room, and friends would gather around, hoping to be offered a taste. These meals represented the culinary traditions and family love that cafeteria food could never replicate. The students with home-cooked lunches held a special status because their food signified that someone at home cared enough to cook and pack elaborate meals. It wasn't just about the food being better. It was about carrying a piece of home and family into the institutional space of school. Many of these students came from families where grandmothers or mothers prioritized traditional cooking, passing down recipes and food culture through the daily ritual of preparing lunch. Sharing this food with friends became an act of extending family care to one's chosen community. However, the presence of these home-cooked meals also highlighted economic divides. Students whose families didn't have time to cook, often because parents worked multiple jobs, or who relied entirely on free or reduced lunch programs, could feel the difference keenly. The generous students would share their food freely, recognizing that not everyone had access to their grandmother's kitchen. In this way, the cafeteria became a place where Black families' mutual aid traditions continued, with food serving as both cultural connection and community care. 15. The Picture Day Cafeteria Energy. On school picture days, the Black school cafeteria transformed into an even more heightened fashion showcase. Students who normally dressed casually would arrive in their finest outfits, hair freshly done, and shoes spotless. The cafeteria became a preview showing of everyone's picture day look, with students offering compliments, suggestions, or criticisms before the actual photos. Friends would help each other with last-minute adjustments, straightening collars, removing lint, or perfecting hairstyles, turning the lunch period into a communal preparation session. The importance placed on picture day reflected how black families viewed these annual photographs. For many families, school pictures were the primary professional photographs taken each year, displayed on mantels and wallets and sent to relatives. Looking your best wasn't vanity. It was about representation and family pride. Students understood that these pictures would circulate through their extended families and neighborhoods, so the stakes were high. The cafeteria buzz on Picture Day captured the collective understanding of this importance. Picture Day also revealed socioeconomic realities. Students whose families could afford the entire photo package would talk excitedly about getting wallets, 8x10s, and keychains, while others quietly knew their families would only buy the minimum or might not buy pictures at all. Yet the cafeteria community often supported students who couldn't afford pictures, with friends sharing their wallet-sized photos or organizing group purchases, so everyone could participate in the ritual of exchanging photos with signatures on the back. 16. The juice and juice drink debates. In black school cafeterias, serious debates erupted over the difference between real juice and juice drinks. Students would argue passionately about whether Sunny Delight qualified as juice, discuss the superiority of High C over Capri Sun, or debate whether quarter water, Kool-Aid in plastic barrels, counted as a beverage at all. These discussions revealed surprising levels of nutritional knowledge, with students citing percentage of real juice, sugar content, and artificial flavoring. The juice versus juice drink debate became a way of discussing class differences and nutritional access without directly addressing economic inequality. The beverages available in school cafeterias often differed significantly from what students drank at home. Many black families relied on powdered drink mixes like Kool-Aid to provide inexpensive beverages, while schools offered milk, juice boxes, or small bottles of juice drinks. Students who brought their own drinks from home, particularly name-brand juices or sodas, generated envy and trading opportunities. The beverage choice became another marker of economic status, though students rarely acknowledged this directly. These juice debates also reflected growing awareness of health and nutrition within black communities. Some students would proudly declare they only drank water or real juice, citing health-conscious parents or personal fitness goals. Others defended their beloved juice drinks as perfectly adequate and more affordable. The cafeteria became a space where students negotiated their understanding of nutrition, economics, and cultural food preferences, with juice serving as the medium for these complex discussions. 17. The substitute lunch lady chaos. When the regular lunch ladies were absent and substitutes took over, black school cafeterias descended into chaos. The substitute workers didn't know the unspoken rules, which students got extra portions, how much food to serve, or the timing and rhythm that made lunch service run smoothly. Lines would move at glacial pace as substitutes struggled to work the equipment and figure out portion sizes. Students would try to take advantage of the confusion, requesting extra servings or sneaking additional items past workers who didn't know the standard procedures. The regular lunch ladies were more than food service workers. They were authority figures who knew students' names, family situations, and who needed what. They maintained order through relationships and respect rather than rules alone. When they were gone, that social infrastructure collapsed. Students who normally behaved would test boundaries, and the cafeteria could become nearly unmanageable. Substitute workers, often overwhelmed, would either give up and let students do whatever they wanted or crack down harshly, creating resentment. These chaotic days revealed how much the cafeteria's functioning depended on personal relationships and community knowledge. The regular lunch ladies, many of whom lived in the same neighborhoods as students and understood black cultural codes and communication styles, could maintain order with a look or a word. Substitutes from different cultural backgrounds often struggled to command the same respect, not because they were inadequate, but because they lacked the community connections that made the cafeteria system work smoothly. 18. The after-fight lunch period energy. When a fight broke out somewhere in school before lunch, the cafeteria energy became electric as students gathered to replay, analyze, and spread the story. Different versions of events circulated through the room as eyewitnesses held court at their tables. demonstrating the moves, revealing what was said, and speculating about consequences. The cafeteria transformed into a news network, with information spreading from table to table, each retelling adding new details or interpretations. Students who missed the fight felt genuine FOMO, desperate for first-hand accounts. These post-fight lunch periods revealed the social dynamics and allegiances within the student body. Friends of each fighter would defend their version of events, arguing about who started it, who won, and whether the fight was justified. The cafeteria became divided into camps, with previously neutral students feeling pressure to take sides. Teachers and administrators knew that the cafeteria was where post-fight tensions would simmer or explode, so they monitored these lunch periods extra carefully, watching for signs of retaliation or escalating conflict. The communal processing of fights through cafeteria storytelling served an important social function. It allowed students to collectively make sense of violence, negotiate conflict resolution, and establish or challenge reputations. The stories told in the cafeteria often became the official version of events, superseding whatever administrators determined happened. In this way, students maintained their own justice system and social order, using the cafeteria as their courthouse and news media combined. 19. The seasonal food shifts that mark time. Black students in school cafeterias marked the passage of time through seasonal food offerings that created anticipation and ritual throughout the year. The first appearance of chili in October signaled fall, while holiday-themed sugar cookies in December made cafeteria food almost festive. Spring meant the return of fresh fruit options and lighter meals, while the last weeks of school brought whatever random items the cafeteria needed to use up before summer. These seasonal shifts created a sense of rhythm and progression, making the school year feel marked by more than just holidays and breaks. Students developed emotional connections to seasonal cafeteria foods, associating certain dishes with particular times of year and memories. The smell of pumpkin bread in November could trigger memories of previous school years, friends who had moved away, or personal growth since the last time that food appeared. These seasonal markers help students orient themselves in time, providing comfort through repetition and predictability in environments that often felt chaotic and unpredictable. The seasonal food offerings also reflected attempts by cafeteria staff to add variety and celebration to school lunch within limited budgets. The lunch ladies understood that seasonal foods created excitement and gave students something to look forward to beyond the regular rotation. These efforts, while sometimes resulting in odd combinations or budget-conscious approximations of holiday meals, demonstrated care and effort that many students recognized and appreciated. The seasonal food calendar became part of a cultural memory of school years. 20. The last day of school cafeteria celebration. The final lunch period of the school year in Black school cafeterias held special magic. Students would take extra risks, wearing what they wanted, playing music louder, laughing more freely, knowing that consequences mattered less with summer hours away. Yearbooks circulated through the cafeteria as students collected signatures and phone numbers, promising to stay in touch over the summer. Seniors eating their last school lunch became sentimental, realizing they would never return to this space that had been central to their daily lives for years. The cafeteria staff often relaxed rules, giving extra portions or allowing extended lunch periods, tacitly acknowledging the significance of the day. These last day celebrations reflected the bittersweet nature of endings and the anticipation of summer freedom. Students who had feuded throughout the year would sometimes reconcile, while friends heading to different high schools or moving away would make dramatic promises to stay close. The cafeteria, which had witnessed so much drama in daily life throughout the year, became a place for goodbyes and good wishes. The energy mixed excitement for summer with nostalgia for the routines and relationships that had defined the school year. For seniors, this last cafeteria lunch marked the end of an era. Many would return years later and remember not the academic lessons learned in classrooms, but the social education gained in the cafeteria, how to navigate social hierarchies, defend themselves verbally, share resources, and build community in institutional spaces. The cafeteria had been their training ground for adult life, teaching lessons about resilience, creativity, and solidarity that would serve them long after the school bells stopped ringing.